Hey everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm back today with another Let's Make a Card video. So today I'm going to be using some digital stamps. These are the freshly squeezed digital stamps from Craft and Desert Divas, and it's a rather large set. Now in Photoshop Elements, which is what I use for all of my digital stamps, I went ahead and created an A2 sized new project. I used that single lemon stamp and I just repeatedly dropped and dragged it onto my project and duplicated it until I had this great background. Now I didn't worry about filling the center of this because I knew I would be covering it up. And what I did was I went ahead and printed off another piece of cardstock that had the picture and the glass that I used together, and I created a little scene with them. Now I went ahead and I printed on watercolor paper, and I did have a question about how I got my digital stamps onto watercolor paper. I have a laser printer, and that's what I use to do all my printing with. Now you will notice once I'm done with this card that a little bit of my lines have smudged from the water. Now that is because whenever I went in, I used the thicker paper. You have a thick paper, you have a thick, a thicker, and a thickest. I think I set it on thickest, and this is a thinner watercolor paper that I'm using here. It's almost like an 80-pound watercolor paper. So kind of judge about how thick your paper is. If this would have been a normal piece of watercolor paper, it probably would have been okay, but I went ahead and set it too high, so it put too much toner on my paper. So maybe go with the thicker paper. Make sure you have it on cardstock. And then whenever you go ahead and you print, you want to feed this through the front of your printer, the self-feeding, not where it takes in the paper itself. That's going to get it stuck and it's going to get it jammed each and every time. Make sure you feed this watercolor paper through by hand, and you should be able to get it through your laser printer. Just, you got to feel it out with your own printer. And if you are scared of getting it stuck in there, don't do it at all. But I'm kind of a do-it-yourselfer, and if something gets jammed, I'll take it apart and get it out. It's not a big deal to me. So just a few tips on getting your watercolor paper through your laser printer. Feed it through the front, or if you have a back feeder, go ahead and do that. But do not put it in where it shoots it through itself. So once I had that through and I had everything printed off, I did die cut them using the fancy frame set. And now I'm using my Distress inks to go ahead and color all of these in, watercolor them in. So I used the Squeeze Lemonade, which is very fitting for this sort of picture that I'm watercoloring here. And I used some Mustard Seed, Craft Pistachio, Salty Ocean for the ice cubes, and also just a little bit of the Festive Berries for that straw. I wanted to make a red and white striped straw. So once I had that completely done, I did go ahead and heat set that with my heat gun just to make sure everything was nice and dry. You can see I do have a little bit of my lines are missing. I'll show you how I fix that a little bit later on. But that's just from getting a little bit too much toner. And excuse my head here, because what I'm doing now is creating a very mini shaker card right where the liquid should be in the glass. I thought it would be really fun to make that into a teeny tiny shaker. So I'm using my craft knife to go ahead and cut out that liquid in the glass, and then I've just covered that hole with a piece of acetate on the back. You can see I did run this through once before and it didn't work out for me, so I just flip it over and go and run it through a second time on the back so I don't waste any product. Now once I have that acetate on, I like to use Fun Foam and double-sided adhesive for my shaker cards. I find it works better for me than double-sided foam tape, but use whatever works for you. I went ahead and just created a nice little square around that piece that I had cut out. Now you could do 2 layers here if you wanted to. That would make even more space for sequins, especially in a small one like this. You might want to do 2. I just went ahead and did 1 layer of Fun Foam. Once I had that done, I'll go ahead and run my embossing bag right on the inside, and that's just going to take care of any static that might be in there and keep my sequins from shaking, or it makes them look a little wonky in there sometimes. So I just like to do that to take care of any static, and then I filled them up with these sequins from Craft and Desert Divas. These are the shimmer sequins, and instead of trying to fit that little piece that I had cut out back over, I just went ahead and used a scrap piece of cardstock, quickly did a gradient of yellows with the same mustard seed and squeezed lemonade that I had used beforehand, did a quick gradient on that and a nice square so it just fit over the back nicely, and I didn't have to worry about being very precise when I overlaid it on top of that glass. And once I flipped it over, you could see I had a great little shaker that looked like a glass of lemonade with some ice cubes in it, which I just loved the look of that. So in order to put this on top and make it all even, I went ahead and put some fun foam around the open spaces, adhesive on the back of everything, and then I flipped it over right on the piece of paper that I had watercolored with all the lemons on it. That was my background paper. Then on the piece of that, on the back of that, I applied double-sided adhesive, and I will attach the entire mat and the little shaker onto an A2 side folding craft card base. Now I also did a little die cutting with some more craft cardstock. That little banner is also from the Fancy Frames die set, and I went ahead and stamped the hello from the Simply Said stamp set in Versamark ink, heat embossed in white. Put that on some fun foam right on the right hand side to finish off the card. Now as I was looking at this after it was all finished here and I was kind of doing my little close-up, I noticed that some of my little pieces where the toner were and where I had done my watercoloring, I noticed that they had almost like chipped away. So they didn't get heated enough as they went through my laser printer. So what I decided to do in order to fix that was I just took a Sharpie, or you could use any sort of black pen you might have on hand, and I just went over the lines very carefully and kind of filled them back in where they were missing those black pieces, and that took care of that issue too. So if you're looking at this, then you look at the pictures later on, you can see I went back in and I filled in those missing spots. But that finished off the card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm going to leave you with these last few pictures. Now on the left side of your screen, you're going to see a few different links you can click on. The top will take you to a video you might enjoy watching next. The bottom left will take you to the supply list for this card. And the bottom right will subscribe you to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!